In this life, I didn't deliberately beg my mother to put Sophia and me in the same class. I also didn't fuss over tutoring her, just so we could get into the same university. Nor did I, to ease her worries, spend my own dollars buying a house near the college and bring her disabled grandfather Arthur to live with us. May 1983, college applications imminent. She chose Xiamen University, near the sea. I applied to Jingshi University, 1,000 miles away from her. In the previous life, she treated everyone with kindness and humility, except that she reserved a cold face just for me. So in this life, I only hope we'll be strangers to each other and live our separate lives. But later, I attended a lecture at Xiamen University as a representative of outstanding teachers. She sat beside me as an auditor, and when she looked at me, her eyes suddenly welled up. "Ethan, why don't you want me anymore? Ethan, tell me, what do you want to discuss with Mom?" I was stunned, watching Mother Margaret pick up a pair of greens with her chopsticks and place them on Sophia's plate, my head spinning. How can my mom be here? After a moment, I suddenly noticed the vintage metal cup on the table stamped with festive patterns, and the calendar on the wall stopped at May 12th, 1983. Isn't this the day I begged my mom to stuff Sophia and me into the same class? Could it be that I've been reborn? My mom, seeing me silent for a long time, waved her hand in front of my face. "What are you staring off at? Mom's asking you, what do you want to say?" "What did I say in my past life?" "Mom, Sophia is bad at math. If I'm in the same class as her, I can help her more. So, what happened? I really did use that excuse to get transferred to her class, and even became her desk mate. But she wrote in her weekly journal that I was clinging and nagging, and the homeroom teacher read that to my mom. At the thought of the chain of consequences that would follow, I shook my head and picked at a couple of mouthfuls of rice. Nothing much. Just that tomorrow I want to eat steamed dumplings with meat filling, pork and cabbage. Mother paused in surprise, then smiled. "All right, I'll go buy the meat early tomorrow." Sophia, sitting across from me, put down her chopsticks and frowned like a knot. She was definitely wondering what mischief I was up to again. In my previous life, I went to great lengths to get close to her. I pulled a lot of tricks. I deliberately dropped an eraser at her feet, pretended to pass by to hand her notes, and even secretly emptied the whole class's trash cans when it was her duty. Thinking back now, it was embarrassingly foolish. "Ethan, what are you trying to do again?" She just put down her bowl when Sophia blocked my way. She wore a faded light-colored dress, her hair tied in a ponytail, eyes wide and round like a frightened little animal. "What do you mean by that?" I hurriedly wiped the table, not looking up. "Haven't you always thought I was annoying? That I make excuses to cling to you? So I'll stop clinging from now on. Isn't that fine?" Sophia stepped forward, then stopped. "What game are you trying to play now? Do you think because my dad George is gone, I have to rely on your family?" "I'm telling you." "Sophia." I cut her off and tossed the rag into the basin. "My dad Thomas and your dad George were brothers who would give their lives for each other. Saying that is really a bit cold toward my father. And besides, I used to cling to you because I was immature, thinking that being good to you would make you like me. Now I understand. You don't like me, and forcing it together is pointless." She opened her mouth, but didn't speak. The confusion in her eyes spread like spilled ink, blotting out in ring after ring. Of course, last life, I was like a piece of clingy taffy that wouldn't come off. Suddenly being this calm would baffle anyone. I turned and went into the bedroom, glancing at her before closing the door. She was still standing in the same spot, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress. The streetlight's glow filtered through the window, casting a half-lit, half-shadowed pattern across her face. Sophia's father left suddenly. On his deathbed, he clasped my father's hand, asking him to take care of his daughter. My mother softened and raised her like her own, but I knew the string inside Sophia was always taut. She always felt our family's kindness toward her was pity, a handout. Even the candy I handed her, she would mull over for a long time, wondering if it was a weasel wishing the chicken a happy new year. In my previous life, to prove I'm not pitying you, I threw myself into treating her well, saving her a seat in the library, standing up to the boys who bullied her, even secretly spending an entire afternoon at her father's grave on the anniversary of his death. What I ended up with was her telling others, "Ethan is nice to me, but it's just for a good reputation." On the bedside table, the photo frame still held a picture of her and me from elementary school. She stood beside me, her mouth pressed tightly, while I smiled, showing my molars. Even then I thought, when I grow up, I must marry Sophia as my wife. Now, given a second life, thinking back on those vows feels absurd. The cicadas outside grew louder and louder, and yet suddenly there was a knock at the door. Sophia's voice came through the door, a bit muffled. "Ethan, come out. Are you still angry about the last time I gave away the pen you gave me?" I told you I didn't do it on purpose." I said nothing, leaned against the door, listening to her voice grow smaller until it became an almost inaudible sigh. "The debts of the last life, let them go in this one. She has her life, and I should have my way of living. You can't spend your whole life wasting it on someone who doesn't love you." The desk lamp was glaring. I picked up a pen and wrote a line in the notes remarks column. "May we each find our own happiness from now on, with no further entanglements." The next morning, I woke up before the alarm even went off. Usually at this time, I'd be in the kitchen helping my mom pick vegetables, waiting to go out with Sophia. She always said, "Walking to school with you is so embarrassing," but I'd still time to wait at the corner of Gatuzin Street for her, pretending to run into her. But today I left with a steamed bun in my mouth. The old locust tree at the street corner had leaves so green they dazzled, sunlight filtering through the gaps and scattering on the ground, making me feel a little dazed. At this time in my past life, I was clutching the strawberry-flavored candy I'd bought for her, wandering beneath her window. "Ethan, why didn't you wait for Sophia?" Just as I entered the classroom, Bob came over. He still had half a fried dough stick in his mouth. "Yesterday, the homeroom teacher even asked me if your mom had talked to her about switching classes. Why hasn't there been any follow-up?" I threw my backpack onto the desk and took out my textbook. "Not switching. What?" Bob nearly dropped his yo-chow. "Weren't you all obsessed with being in Sophia's class? Last time you said sitting near her, front or back, would give you a privileged chance. How'd you flip so fast?" I didn't bother and opened the Chinese textbook. "I used to like her, want to get close. Now I don't, so why join that fuss?" No sooner had he finished speaking than a pale figure flitted past the classroom door. Sophia, with a cloth backpack, was peeking into our class. Hearing my words, her steps faltered. There was little expression on her face, but the fingers gripping the backpack strap tightened suddenly, her knuckles whitening. I didn't look at her. I kept my head down, flipping through a book. Before, if she had glanced at me even once more, I would have been happy for a whole day. Now it felt like even the air had become much lighter. She stood for a few seconds, said nothing, turned and walked away, her ponytail flicking a little sharply. Bob poked my arm. Look, Sophia heard that. She looks terrible. Did you two really break up?" "Break up what? We weren't close to begin with." I couldn't be bothered to explain, and just then the teacher came in holding a stack of university application simulation forms. "Class, these are university application simulation forms. Take them home and discuss them with your parents, then hand them in next week." The teacher spoke from the podium while I stared at the Xiamen University field on the form, my head buzzing. In my previous life, Sophia and I crouched under the plane tree by the playground. She drew waves on the ground with a twig and said, "Ethan, come with me to Xiamen to see the sea. I heard the beaches there are especially soft." My heart was pounding. I nodded hard. "Okay, I'll go with you." In the end, we both applied to Xiamen University, but she turned around and told others that I was the one shamelessly insisting on applying to the same school as her. How ridiculous. What are you thinking? Your soul's already flown away. Bob gave me a shove, pulling me out of my memories. "Aren't you really not enrolling at Xiamen University? Sophia told me yesterday that she's dead set on going to Xiamen." I'll apply to Jingshi University." I picked up a pen and drew a thick line under the Jingshi University entry. Jingshi's pretty good, not so trendy. We, a bunch of students, spent the day amid chirping voices of anticipation. The bell rang to end school. I hopped on my bike and sped off. Just as I left the school gate, I heard someone shout from behind, "Ethan." I looked back. Sophia was jogging to catch up, a light sheen of sweat on her forehead. "Something you need?" She took a few breaths, fingers twisting the strap of her backpack, her gaze a little unfocused. Are you mad at me today?" "No." "Then why say you don't like me anymore?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, as if afraid of being overheard. "And about switching shifts, isn't that something you've always wanted?" "Sophia," I interrupted her. "What on earth do you want?" She suddenly looked up, her eyes wide open. I didn't understand what she was thinking, so I decided to lay my heart out plainly. "I used to cling to you, and you found me annoying. Now I don't cling anymore, and you keep asking why. You've always wanted me to stay away from you, haven't you? I've given you what you wanted, so why are you uncomfortable now?" She opened her mouth, her lips moving, but after a long time, she didn't say anything, and her face slowly flushed. Before, when she talked to me, she was either cold or impatient. She'd never been so hesitant. After a long, while she lowered her head and kicked at the small stones by her feet. I just thought it was strange." "What's strange about that?" I couldn't be bothered to waste time with her. "I'm going home. My mom's waiting for me to make dumplings." After saying that, I kicked the bicycle and left. In the rearview mirror, Sophia was still standing where she had been, her figure growing smaller and finally becoming a blurred pale dot. The wind blowing on my face felt a little cool. Last life, if I had been able to clearly draw the line with her so decisively at that time, would things have ended up so awkward later on? Passing the grocery store at the entrance of Goodwood Town, I stopped and bought a piece of candy. I unwrapped it and popped it into my mouth. It was sickeningly sweet. I used to always buy the strawberry flavor that Sophia liked. Today I grabbed an orange one at random, and it wasn't bad. When I got home, my mom was making dumpling filling. "You're back? Go wash your hands. Help mom roll the wrappers in a bit." I answered, threw my backpack on the sofa. Sophia's door was closed, and there was no sound from inside. The college application simulation form still lay spread out on the table, the 4 characters Jing Shu Da Xie particularly prominent. Fine, that's settled. As for Sophia, she has her C, and I have my north. For now on, we'll go our separate ways, fine by me. But since I stopped orbiting around Sophia, her behavior has grown increasingly odd. Before, she avoided me like the plague, her eyes full of impatience. Now she's always drifting into my line of sight, her gaze sticky like candy. Bob poked my arm. "Ethan, the way Sophia looks at you, it's like she lost her soul." I knew why, but I couldn't be bothered to answer. We're not kids anymore. Am I supposed to keep fawning over her with a warm heart while she gives me the cold shoulder? The day before submitting our college choices, the bell had just rung after class when Sophia blocked my desk. Her school uniform sleeves were unevenly rolled up, her fingers twisting the hem, the same as when she was at my bedroom door last time. "Ethan, which school did you apply to?" I shoved textbooks into my backpack without looking up. "Why are you asking that?" She paused, as if chewing the words a few times before swallowing them. "I was just asking casually." I zipped up my backpack. "Where I apply to school is none of your business, right?" The moment those words left my mouth, I caught her eyelid twitching sharply. Her eyes, which always carried a hint of distance, were now veiled in a layer of dust, full of loss. She opened her mouth, but in the end only uttered an "oh," and her steps floated as she turned away. Before, if she showed a little kindness, I'd be happy all day. Now I only feel relieved. People have to learn to unbind themselves. The classroom was noisy the day we turned in our forms. Sophia must have heard about my choice of university from somewhere. When she ran over, her temples were sweaty and her hair stuck to her face. Her voice was choked with tears, her eyes red like a rabbit's. "Ethan, you applied to Jingshu University." The surrounding classmates all looked over. I frowned. "So what if I did? You promised you'd go to Shaman with me to see the sea." She stepped forward, voice trembling. "Under the phoenix tree, you said you'd go with me." A scene from the previous life suddenly sprang up. She squatted under the tree drawing waves, sunlight shining on the tips of her hair. But when she turned, she told people I was shamelessly clingy. So what did those words we said to each other mean then? Sophia, I stared at her, my tone calm. That was before. Before what? Before you said you liked me, said you'd get into a school. How did it change now? Because I don't love you anymore. Those words were like a knife. They hurt me too, but I knew everything had to be said clearly. I don't love you. You're free to go to Shaman University, and I'm free to go to Jingshi. We should have gone our separate ways long ago. Maybe it was because I had never said something so harsh to her before. She froze in place, tears dropping with a plop, unable to say a word for a long time. She used to be afraid I'd look down on her, so she always put on a front in front of me, never losing her composure. But now, seeing her cry helplessly with my own eyes, my heart fell hard and unyielding, without the slightest softening. Some entanglements, if they're to end, should just end. The atmosphere froze at dinner. Sophia kept her head down as she shoveled food, her eyes still red. My mother gave her some ribs. She whispered, "Thank you, Aunt Margaret," her voice severely hoarse. After she went back to her room, Mom set down the dishes and sighed. "Are you and Sophia having a fight?" I pushed the plate away. "We're not fighting." "Not fighting?" My mom looked at me. "She's been out of it these past few days. You used to walk home together after school, and now you don't even speak. What's going on?" I stare at the faded festive pattern worn off the vintage metal cup. "It's nothing. I just figured it out. When I used to chase her, I thought being good to her would make her like me. But she always felt I had ulterior motives. I'm tired." Mom paused at my words, then let out a long sigh. Her father, George, died young. She lacks a sense of security. It's not intentional. But you grew up together. Childhood feelings don't put food on the table. I cut her off. I used to have her, not anymore. She goes to Shaman. I report to Beijing. I just want to be far away, each live their own life. My mother didn't say anything. Only a look of pain and helplessness was in her eyes. "I know you used to care a lot. If you can't get along, I won't force you, but I don't want you to regret it." "I won't, Mom. I regretted before because I used to revolve around her, regretting my own foolishness. Now like this is fine." Outside the window, the cicadas kept singing. Inside the room, it was very quiet. My mom ladled me a bowl of soup and didn't say anything else. I knew she was hurting inside. After all, she had always treated Sophia like her own daughter and had intended her to be her daughter-in-law. In fact, in my previous life, it was mostly my mom who arranged for Sophia and me to get together. But the path is chosen by oneself, and once chosen, you can't turn back. The streetlights in the distance cast a yellow glow, stretching the tree shadows long. Seeing the four characters, Jing Shruvisha, on the volunteer form, my heart had never felt this open. She has her sea. I have my north. In this life, let it go on like this. From the day I resolved to draw a clear line with Sophia, we became like two parallel lines with no intersection. We weren't in the same class to begin with, and because I was preparing for the college entrance exam, I was out early and home late. My days were filled with textbooks and test papers. Once Bob mentioned seeing Sophia peering toward our classroom in the hallway. I merely flipped the page of my book and didn't give a second thought. At that time, I devoted all my energy to the goal of getting into Jing City University. On the day the college entrance exam ended, I threw a stack of prep materials onto the bed, mentally and physically exhausted. Mother walked in carrying a watermelon. Sophia went back to Gituzan to visit Grandpa Arthur after finishing her exams. She left without saying goodbye to you. I said, "Oh," and kept biting into the watermelon, asking no more. To me, her leaving felt like a relief, allowing both of us to temporarily distance ourselves from that delicate relationship. The days waiting for the admission letter were particularly long. One day, after returning from a run, the mail carrier handed me a brown paper envelope. The moment I opened it, the four gilded characters Jing Shui flashed before my eyes, and the joy in my heart was beyond words. Years of effort finally paid off. At that moment, the sound of a bicycle came from the courtyard gate. I looked up and saw Sophia standing there. She was thinner, her skin a little sun-darkened, and she was carrying a cloth bag. When her gaze fell on the envelope in my hand and saw the exposed red cover, her eyes instantly filled with tears. She hesitated as she stepped forward, her toes barely scraping the floor, her voice trembling. "Ethan, did you really get into Jing City University?" I nodded, folded the acceptance letter, and put it in my pocket. Suddenly, she tightened her grip on the strap of her cloth bag, her knuckles whitening, as if she had summoned all her courage to speak. I have something I want to tell you." Cicadas tirelessly chirped in the trees, the sun scorching the ground, and the air was thick with a stifling heat. I waited quietly, watching how she would speak. "I used to always find you annoying." She lowered her head, her voice tinged with a choke. "You tutored me, saved seats for me, and I thought you were deliberately pestering me. But later when you stopped paying attention to me, I realized." She looked up sharply, tears brimming in her eyes. "I've realized I'm not someone who hates you, Ethan. I like you. I couldn't figure out my feelings before. Only when you truly stopped coming near did I realize there was an empty place in my heart." This was the first time she confessed to me. Once upon a time, I had imagined this scene countless times. But when it actually came, I felt unusually calm, as if listening to a story that had nothing to do with me. Seeing my silence, she stepped forward anxiously. "Could you give me one more chance? Just one. I promise I'll treat you well from now on. Sophia." I interrupted her, gently shaking my head. "It's too late." "How could it be too late?" Her tears fell. "Weren't you the one who loved me the most before? You said you'd marry me. You'd go with me to Xia City. How can you just give up like that?" I did not answer, only stared at her. Various memories from my previous life suddenly flashed through my mind. I married her, had children with her, but she never truly loved me. Every step she took felt as if I had coerced her. She refused to listen to me, and within a few years after marriage, she even found someone she truly liked. She would show that person a smiling face, utterly gentle, and I really couldn't risk my whole life again for this single moment. Every moment I was treated with indifference stabbed my heart like a needle. I smiled at her. That smile was mixed with helplessness and relief. The past is already past. I ignored her sobbing and turned to walk into the room. Finally, he paused at the door for a moment, then turned his head. "Sophia, not every situation can return to the starting point just because one side regrets it or tries hard. Just like in my previous life, even when I laid my heart bare before her, she never treasured it. Some missed chances are forever." I opened the door, and sunlight streamed through the window onto the acceptance letter on the table. The emblem of Jing City University gleamed. This is the path I have chosen for myself. Even without her by my side, I must walk it steadfastly. And the sobbing behind her, along with those belated feelings, will eventually, like the cicadas of this summer, fade away in the wind. I left Sophia standing alone in the yard. Her cries grew more distant behind me. I knew that from this moment on, that fragile thread between us was completely severed. In the days that followed, I threw myself wholeheartedly into preparing to register at Jing City University. While packing, I happened upon an old diary and found a slip of paper tucked inside. A math problem solution approach Sophia had casually written once. Seeing that familiar handwriting, the old feelings of infatuation and grievance flooded back all at once. But I quickly came to my senses, gently put the note back into the diary, and tucked it into the depths of a drawer. Let the past be past. It's time to move on to a new life. The day I left Gutuzan for Jingshi, my mother's eyes were rimmed with red as she repeatedly urged me to take good care of myself. Sophia came too. She stood at a distance, watching my farewell with my mother, her eyes full of complicated emotions. There was reluctance, there was regret, and more than anything, helplessness. I nodded to her, a final farewell of sorts, then turned and boarded the train. Arriving at Jingshi University, the brand new environment quickly kept me busy. My schedule was packed with courses, and the various club activities were equally lively. At a literary club event, I met a girl named Luna Harris. She was cheerful, with two faint dimples when she smiled, and had a unique perspective on literature. We often discussed poetry and novels together, and before we knew it, we were spending more and more time together. Until one day, she asked me to take a walk by the school's lake. Moonlight spilled across the lake, rippling with shimmering light. She suddenly stopped, looked up at me, and what showed in her eyes was unmistakable tenderness. "Ethan, I've thought for a long time about what exactly I feel for you. Until yesterday, when you suddenly drew close to me, I realized in an instant that I like you. Can you be my boyfriend?" I looked into her sincere eyes, my heart a little flustered. For reasons I couldn't explain, I thought of Sophia, of those times that had been betrayed, but the Luna before me was so real and beautiful. The light reflected in her gaze made me willing to believe in her again, to believe in love. So after a moment's hesitation, I gently took her hand. "I like you too." At that moment, the moonlight seemed even gentler. However, life is always full of surprises. When I went home for the winter holidays, I heard that Sophia was ill, and very seriously so. Mother sighed. "I don't know what's wrong with this child. Ever since you left, she's been listless. Now that she's fallen ill, she looks so pitiful." I frowned. Although I had let go of the past feelings, we had known each other for many years, and out of respect for Father, I should at least go see her. I bought some fruit and went to Sophia's house. Sophia lay on the bed, her face pale. When she saw me come in, her eyes brightened for a moment, then quickly dimmed. "You're here." I set the fruit aside and nodded slightly. "I heard you were ill. Came to check on you." We exchanged a few words, mostly trivialities. An awkwardness permeated the air. As she was leaving, Sophia suddenly spoke. "Ethan, I don't blame you. I only regret why I was so foolish back then." A sour feeling rose in my chest. I wanted to say something comforting, but didn't know where to begin. In the end, I only left the words, "Take care and recover well," and hurried away. Back home, Luna called. Hearing I wasn't in a great mood, she comforted me gently. After hanging up with her, I stared out at the night sky, my mind racing with thoughts. Sophia's regret moved me, but life has no turning back. She and I were destined to head in different directions. And Luna's arrival was like a beam of light, illuminating my new life. I deeply understand that cherishing the person in front of you is the best answer for the future. As time went by, Luna and I grew closer and closer. During school, my studies became increasingly busy, and I didn't even have the chance to go home. In the year I was about to graduate from my senior year, the teachers at the school noticed my abilities and persuaded me to stay on. I agreed. After that, the days seemed fast-forwarded, and in the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. In those 5 years, I went from a master's to a doctorate, and my lectern moved from the corner of the tiered classroom to the very center. The lesson plans on my desk were piled higher than a person, and the drawer was stuffed with throat lozenges Luna had prepared for me. After she graduated, she joined a publishing company, and we rented a house with a balcony in the school's staff compound. The balcony was filled with the roses she loved. Life felt like soaking in honey, sweet and solid. Occasionally, some high school classmates came to the Capitol on business, and when they gathered in small restaurants to drink, someone would always mention Sophia. I heard she returned to her hometown high school to teach after graduation. Bob mumbled, chewing peanuts. Then she quit, rented a room near Shaman University, and brought her grandfather Arthur over. Someone else chimed in, she came to the alumni reunion a couple of years ago, dressed pretty plainly, and kept asking about you. Whether you were doing well in the Capitol, whether you had a partner. I lifted the beer and took a sip. A coolness slid down my throat. Outside the window, the sycamore leaves of Jing City's late autumn gleamed a dazzling gold. Placed a few years earlier, hearing these words would have sent my heart into turmoil, but now I felt utterly calm, as if listening to someone else's story. Luna was serving me food, her fingertip brushing the back of my hand. I smiled at her, and she understood, changing the subject to the new poetry collections the publishing house had received. The name Sophia was like a faded stamp, nailed down in the summer of 1983, never to be peeled off, and yet it stirred not a ripple. I have my lesson plans, my students, and the songs Luna hums while hanging clothes on the balcony. These solid, everyday days have long since filled the emptiness of the past to the brim. It wasn't until 1992 that wireless pagers started going off in the city. I was pacing in the bathroom with toothpaste in my mouth when Luna shouted at me, holding up a small black box. "Ethan, your wireless pager is going off." It had been issued by the department. The number had only been registered for a few days. I wiped my mouth and leaned over. A string of numbers flashed on the screen, followed by a short line of text. "How have you been lately?" No signature. Luna leaned on my shoulder to take a look and asked casually, "Who is it?" I stared at that line of text. My heart felt as if something had gently struck it, then quickly returned to steady. Sparrows outside hopped along the clothesline, and Luna's shampoo scent mixed with toothpaste, drifting into my nose. "I don't know," I said, stuffing the wireless pager into my pocket and taking the towel she handed me to wipe my face. Maybe it was a wrong number. Luna didn't press further. She turned and went to the kitchen to heat some milk. I looked at myself in the mirror. A few barely noticeable white hairs had appeared at my temples, and my gaze was much heavier than when I was younger. That girl who, in the spring of 1983, asked with red-rimmed eyes, "Why don't you want me anymore?" Now, separated by 9 years of time, knocked on my life with a string of unsigned numbers. But what did that matter? I remember taking students to the library last week, in the lunchbox Luna had specially brought. I remember last winter when we were skating in the Imperial Gardens of the capital. When she fell into my arms, tears of laughter came from her eyes. I remember the doctoral dissertation spread open on the desk, and on the acknowledgments page, I wrote her name. These trivial yet warm moments, like layer upon layer of cocoons, wrapped my heart tightly. The wireless pager beeped again, the same message repeated once more. I walked out to the balcony and pinched off a withered rose. Luna called from the kitchen, "Ethan, the milk's heated." "Coming." I answered, took the wireless pager out of my pocket, and casually set it on the balcony windowsill. Sunlight warmed its black casing, and the characters on the screen gradually blurred. Some questions need no answers. Some pasts need no revisiting. It's like the sea in Xiamen never waited for my footprints, while the snow in Beijing had already blanketed every road that Luna and I walked. As for the name hidden behind that pager number, let it dissolve in the winds of 1992. After all, I already have a new dawn to chase and new stories to begin. I just didn't expect Sophia to be so persistent with me. She actually tracked me down to Jing City. I was on a business trip in Guangzhou when I received a call from my colleague Ryan Parker. His tone was a bit gossiping. "Ethan, the high school classmate of yours. Sophia, she came to the school looking for you yesterday and stood downstairs at the office building all afternoon." I held the receiver, watching the neon lights outside the hotel window, feeling nothing but puzzlement. "Oh, got it. Aren't you going to reply?" Ryan pressed. "She looks pretty haggard. Said she came all the way from Xiamen on purpose." "I'm on a business trip out of town," I interrupted him. "Besides, what could she possibly want from me?" After all these years, the name Sophia had long since become like a rusty nail. Occasionally when it was brought up, it would prick a little, but it could no longer stir up any waves. Luna and I lived like precision gears, meshing together as we turned forward, unable to accommodate any suddenly intruding foreign object. But all the plans in my head couldn't keep up with the speed of change. Half a month later, Principal Daniel Clark called me into his office and tossed me an invitation. Xiamen University is holding an academic seminar next month, and the school has decided to have you as the keynote speaker. I looked at the 4 characters Xiamen University, and my heart inexplicably skipped a beat. I had a vague feeling that something was about to happen, so I reflexively wanted to decline. "Principal Clark, I'm swamped with projects right now. Could we?" "You have to go even if you're busy," the principal interrupted, tapping his finger on the desk. "You're an outstanding teacher representing our school. We can't lose face. We've already booked your plane ticket and hotel." I had no choice and had to accept the arrangement. Stepping out of the office, the sunlight was so bright it made me squint. I knew what I was afraid of. Afraid of that stretch of sea, afraid of those old times scattered by the wind, and most of all afraid of an inevitable reunion. That evening at home, I put the invitation on the dining table and said to Luna, who was arranging flowers. Xi'a City University invited me to be the keynote speaker at an academic seminar next month. Luna looked up at me, the rose in her hand frozen midair. Going to Shaman? MM. I took a deep breath and laid out, like spreading an old newspaper, the 1983 application form, Sophia's tears, and the unread messages on the pager. Everything exactly as it was, telling her the whole story. She came to Beijing to look for me before I was afraid. Luna put down the scissors and came over to take my hand. Her fingertips were warm, and there was no hint of blame in her eyes, only a calm understanding. Do you want me to go with you? If you don't mind. My voice was a little low. Fool, I believe you. She smiled and pinched the back of my hand. Don't worry, I'll go with you. Just think of it as going to see how the southern sea is different from the northern snow. On the day of the academic symposium, the auditorium at Shaman University was packed. I stood on stage in a suit. When my gaze swept over the audience, I saw that familiar figure in the front row. Sophia wore a light blue dress, her hair pinned up, with light makeup on her face, but it couldn't hide the redness in the whites of her eyes. The nameplate beside her read, "Accompanying guest." My heart sank for a moment. She really had come. Halfway through the speech, the host invited the accompanying guest onto the stage. Sophia lifted her skirt and walked up. When she stood beside me, her shoulders trembled slightly. The flashbulbs in the audience lit up like a sea, but she stared at me intently, her lips trembling as if 30 years' worth of words were about to spill out. During the Q&A, after a student asked a question, Sophia suddenly snatched the microphone. Her voice came through the speakers, choked and barely contained. Teacher Ethan Johnson. The whole venue fell silent. My fingers tightened around the microphone. Luna, sitting in the front row of the audience, gave me a slight nod. Do you remember? Sophia's tears fell, splashing onto the microphone. You said you'd watch the sea with me. Why don't you want me anymore? 30 years of time collapsed in an instant. Whispers rose from the audience, and the flashbulbs grew more frequent. I looked at her reddened eyes and those deliberately sealed-off scenes. The waves beneath the Chinese parasol tree, the red ink on the volunteer form, the cold glow of the pager's screen, suddenly sharpened, as clear as yesterday. But I didn't panic like I did 30 years ago. I turned around, faced her, and faced those calm eyes in the audience that were watching me. Sophia, I heard my voice come through the microphone, steady as the lake in Jing City in late autumn. A long time ago, I did want to go see the sea with you. Her tears flowed even faster. But later I realized, I paused, my gaze passing her and landing on Luna in the audience. She was smiling at me, clutching the fountain pen I had given her. I realized some people are meant to watch the sea together. Some are meant to wait for the snow together. And I have already found someone willing to wait for the snow with me in the capital. The auditorium was so quiet you could hear the soft sound of the wind outside. Sophia held the microphone, frozen in place, tears running down her cheeks, but she couldn't ask that why anymore. I nodded to her and turned to continue the speech. It was as if that sudden confession moments ago had been nothing more than a grain of sand blown in by the sea breeze, settling into the shell of time, destined to be worn into an insignificant mark by the new life to come. And Luna sat in the audience, the fountain pen in her hand rustling across her notebook. Every word I write down now is the answer I most want to give. Sophia did not show up at the dinner after the academic seminar. Luna held off a few drinks for me, her fingertips resting lightly on the back of my hand the whole time. When I walked out of the banquet hall, the sea breeze of Shaman hit my face with a salty dampness, and I suddenly remembered that summer night many years ago when I gripped my application form. Regret it. Luna tilted her head up to look at me. The streetlight shattered into stars in her eyes. I shook my head and fished a shell out of my pocket. It was picked up this morning during a walk on the beach. A natural crack ran along the shell, strikingly like the grooves time carves on the heart. I used to think the sea in Xiamen was a regret. Only now do I understand that the roads we don't take are all meant to lead us to the scenery we're meant to see. Luna smiled and slipped her arm through mine. We walked slowly along Xiamen's Binhai Avenue, the lights behind us gradually going out, the night sky ahead toward Jingshi. The pager vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Bob. Sophia resigned. I heard she's going to volunteer teach in the Union region. I glanced at it, then shoved the wireless pager back into my pocket. The sound of the waves in the distance rose and fell, as if completing someone's final farewell. Luna suddenly stopped walking, took a small box from her bag, and inside was a silver brooch engraved with the leaves of the locust tree from Jing City. An early wedding anniversary gift, she said, standing on tiptoe to pin it to my suit. From now on, you're only allowed to watch Jing City's snow with me. I lower my head to look at the sea breeze in her hair and suddenly remembered Sophia crying years ago, asking, "Why don't you want me anymore?" Back then I didn't understand. Only now do I finally realize that not every wave is worth chasing, and not every waiting needs a response. The sea is behind me, the snow ahead. I squeezed Luna's hand, crushing a path of moonlight as I walked forward. As for that pale blue figure who vanished into the mountain villages of the Union region, let her find reconciliation with belated acceptance under another sky. After all, the best endings in this world are never reunions. They are each, in their own years, becoming whole in a way that no longer requires the other. George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. You? Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. "Oh my God, it really is you, Mary." Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. "Frank, it's been a long time." She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, "Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew." A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. "Aren't you allergic to mangoes?" I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, "Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing." I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her. Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby. I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. All right, I believe you. I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle Eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to Eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind. Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, She was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. New friend? He asked me quietly. Mary's student, I explained simply. Very talented. Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. Mr. George, Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. What is it? After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, see, I knew you would find a new direction. When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. "This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it." At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," I said with a smile. "I think Mary really would like it." She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, "Professor George, may I ask you a personal question?" "What is it?" "When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole." I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes, even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. "The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design." "Perhaps," I said. "Everyone has the possibility of being reborn." On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being." "It was your philosophy that guided us, teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. "I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger." In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. I know what you're worried about. Frank lowered his voice. You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you? I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. Mary has been gone for 3 years now. Frank gently patted my shoulder. She would want you to be happy. After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly has talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence, no matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines two embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the eternal ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.